Howdy gamers, let's talk about the runes for Kindred Jungle. A pretty unique champion, and keys like runes just really don't suit Kindred that well, but she can make okay use out of like what's available. Um, I think you should look to avoid a lot of the common runes for her though. Runes like Fleet of Footwork and Conquer I think are pretty bad on her. Like yes, Conquer can give you more AD, and then you can also gain bonus healing from it, but I don't think it's really required for Kindred, and I don't think it helps suit like what she needs to achieve in the early game, especially in the jungle role. As with Conqueror, you're effectively losing out on early damage from other keystones, and then in exchange for it, you're getting like a pickaxe, which is okay. But once it's built up, it's harder to build up because your range. Once it's built up, you've probably spent your E, which is really what all your AD is going for, and then you can get a little bit of extra damage on your auto attacks and then like another rotation of your Q, which is really whatever. And then healing on 15% of the damage you deal, that's going to be like maybe 150 healing in a fight versus dealing like almost double that with other keystones. Fleet of Footwork is kind of the same thing. Fleet of Footwork has the biggest utility out of Fleet of Footwork is that it gives you a little bit of extra movement speed, which could be useful, but for jungle, not really. You have so many different tools to gain movement speed or distance on the enemy through either basically just Nimbus Cloak. That's going to do it. That you to spend a keystone on it is really expensive. Other options such as like Hella Blades. Um, Hella Blades might be okay as it would help you get your E auto fast, but um, once that's done, then Kindred's effectively just not a champion after you have the 3 autos. So it's like think about like Xin Zhao's Hella Blades versus Kindred's. So the keystone that I'm going to recommend is going to be Press the Attack. With Press the Attack, it's going to put you in the precision tree, and Press the Attack, hitting an enemy champion with 3 consecutive basic attacks deals damage based on your level, and then makes them vulnerable, increasing all damage they take by 8 to 12% based on your level for 6 seconds. And that's from all sources too. So since you're the jungler, you're usually in 2v2s, 3v3s, or just team fights. And with Kindred too, since she's effectively an AD carry, you're usually focusing one target that's in front, and all your allies will be hitting the target that's in front too, as it's the closest enemy. So not only do you set yourself up for more damage, but you set your allies up for more damage. When you're going for a gank, it's also going to be giving you more damage, as when you hit the enemy with 3 auto attacks, you're just dealing more adaptive damage with just this keystone. And then all damage afterwards is also dealing more damage. So it's kind of achieving the same thing Conquer wants to do with dealing more damage through the bonus AD, but it does it just through the keystone, giving you flat damage based on level, and then also exposing the enemy, increasing all damage they take from all sources. So you can be increasing your laner's damage, or you can be increasing your damage. If you're looking at it as a late game scenario too, whenever you're in the ult, whenever multiple of your allies are in the ult and multiple of the enemies, the one target that you should be looking to kill, if you're proccing press the attack on them after the ult lands, and then everyone can take damage again, then that target is vulnerable, and then they're just therefore taking more damage after the ult. So you're healing more, and you're also dealing more damage out of it. And so are all of your allies. That's the most important part. Like you have to remember, you're the jungler. You're kind of like a secondary support, even though you're playing a like kind of carry champion. For the second rune, it's going to be Triumph. Triumph has really good synergy with Kindred's kit. Has takedowns restore 12% of your missing health and grant you an additional 20 gold. So gives you a little bit of extra gold if you have a successful gank. But in terms of team fighting or skirmishing, where the takedowns restoring 12% of your missing health, it's really good with surviving, as that's a lot of what Kindred's kit is about. Is like denying the enemy from lethals and then turning the whole fight against them. And with 1 kill or assist, if that's just on a weaker champion, then it becomes even more impactful. For the third rune, you have good options in Alacrity or Bloodline. I think both are completely fine, but with Bloodline, you do gain access to lifesteal that you otherwise like wouldn't be able to. Kindred Jungle has a lot of ways to itemize into attack speed versus itemizing the lifesteal. Like itemizing the lifesteal is effectively just not possible for if you're building something like Blade of the Rune King, then it's really bad. And then if you're building like Bloodthirster, it's just going to come way later. So with Bloodline, you gain access to lifesteal a lot earlier in the game, and Kindred makes pretty good use out of it as you're effectively just an AD carry champion. The attack speed is nice. It can give you a lot more damage, but it is luxury compared to the lifesteal option. So that's that. You could run Legend Tenacity, but it's not so necessary. Where Kindred has a don't die move, being CC'd for less duration isn't really that useful for her. With the fourth rune, you have good options in Coup de Grace or Last Stand. In most cases, you'd be getting better value out of Coup de Grace, even though there is like a team fight fantasy with Last Stand. I think with Coup de Grace, it just makes more sense with her kit, as with most AD carry champions, you're effectively never on like a damage cooldown. So your Q and auto attacks are effectively always up for Kindred. So with Coup de Grace, you deal 8% more damage to champions who are below 40% health. Your initial combo will get most champions below 40% health, and then as they're there, Coup de Grace is going to help you finish them off, or deal more damage to them as they're healing or surviving somehow, or running away. So it helps you finish off targets, but it also just gives you better damage values when the target's low. And since your ult can also keep the enemy alive, it'll help you like in the one auto trade after the ult lands or something like that. With Last Stand, you deal 5 to 11% increased damage to champions while you're below 60% HP, max damage gained at 30%. So if you're really trying to play utility for your team, if you were spinning yourself as like a pawn, then you could get a lot of value out of Last Stand on Kindred, as you'd be pulling basically the entire enemy team on top of you on your ult, and then while you're surviving in the ult, or just surviving in general, then you'd be dealing more damage, more percentage increased damage with Last Stand than you would be with Coup de Grace. Because if the team comp would revolve around your team finishing off the enemy versus Kindred having to do it herself, then I don't think Last Stand would be a terrible option. I'm not entirely sure, but it does sound pretty good in my head. For the secondary runes, you have the options of Sudden Impact, Relentless Hunter. You have the option of Nimbus Cloak, Transcendence. You can even go Nimbus Cloak, Water Walking, as Kindred can fight around scuttles. You really need to think about your matchups for the secondary runes. Inspiration's not that useful for it, and then Resolve's also not that useful for it. So it's really about weighing the secondary runes depending on your matchups, as they really do change a lot. So with Sudden Impact, Relentless Hunter, you're getting more damage every time you use your dash, which is effectively never on cooldown. But with Sudden Impact, after you use a dash, a leap, a flash, or whatever, then you gain 7 lethality and 6 magic penetration for 5 seconds, and then it's only on a 4-second cooldown. So it pretty much synergizes with what Kindred's trying to do, is just WQ and then E auto Q on the enemy, and then all of that's just dealing more damage. So it adds to your initial burst in combination with press the attack. Sudden Impact just kind of functions as like a minor keystone in terms of the damage that it offers. And then with Relentless Hunter, this is going to help you move around the map. More importantly, like get in position for ganks, where Kindred usually wants to jump over walls and then flank the enemy versus just walking up the lane or like walking from river to gank the enemy. So Relentless Hunter helps you get into those positions faster, and then also just generally move around the map faster. So move from one side lane to the next, reset onto the map faster, and then also move from camp to camp. So Relentless Hunter is a really high value rune. And to outweigh both of those with Sorcery Second, you really need to get use out of what Sorcery is offering, which is either Transcendence Nimbus Cloak, which Transcendence kind of loses value in the jungle, as it's harder to get, or it's not harder, it's just slower to get to level 10 than it is for solo lanes. And then with the Nimbus Cloak does give you extra movement speed. It is really nice for junglers in combination with their blue smite, but Kindred already has a dash, a slow, and then her ult, and her flash can be used defensively. It's completely fine if she gets caught out by the enemy. With Water Walking, that's where you can get a lot of value, where if you're trying to like run a Lee Sin or a Lee down when they're fighting for Scuttle, then I think this secondary runes would probably be superior. So in those matchups, maybe consider that, and then in farming matchups or ganking matchups, so against champions like Rek'Sai or against champions like Karthus, you probably gain better value out of Sudden Impact and Relentless Hunter, as a lot of what you're doing is wider map movements versus always fighting or skirmishing, because Water Walking and Nimbus Cloak helps you skirmish. Relentless Hunter and Sudden Impact is better for overall map movements, and then kind of just team fighting. And then for the adaptive runes, it's always going to be attack speed, adaptive force, and then depending on your matchup, you can switch the resistance. So if you're into it like an AP matchup in the jungle, or just in general, for the most of the map, you can run magic resist so long that you kite the camps properly. Since Kindred's ranged, you don't have to be taking as much damage from the jungle camps as most champions. But if you're in a pretty standard AD matchup in the jungle, then armor's completely fine. But when you can run the magic resist, like really look to do so. It's pretty valuable. So that's really it with Kindred runes. Again, with Conquer, I don't think it's that valuable as I don't think it outweighs press the attack as I think it's off theme in what's Kindred's trying to achieve with her ganks. You lose out on just early damage, and then also your team loses out on damage from the exposed damage offer from press the attack. And all of that would be in exchange for a little bit of attack damage on Kindred and then a little bit of healing. And by a little bit of healing, I mean like 100 healing or something. Like a potion could heal you as much as Conqueror does in a fight. It's so whack, man. Like think about Cassiopeia using Conqueror, and then think about Kindred using Conqueror. Think about Irelia using Conqueror. Now think about Kindred using Conqueror. It's really whack, man. It's like Caitlyn using Conqueror. It's really misguided. So that's my thoughts on Kindred runes. If you have any questions, leave them in the comments. I answer literally all of them. If this video helps you, leaving a like on the video helps me. And if you're interested in watching me play or talk about League of Legends, you can check out my Twitch. It's twitch.tv/SawyearNelson. Links in the description. And that's that. Kindred's kind of cool, man. Really underutilized champion. But she is harder to play, and it's also kind of brutal when she falls behind. So, yeah. But those auto attacks, though, man. Those auto attacks. Oh my god.